Good morning, everybody. These are the current activities, so let's start in English. Okay? Okay? Okay. Good morning. Okay. So, welcome everybody to this conference about employment and languages, especially English. We are going to have several conferences today. Some of them are going to be by the Cambridge and Trinity, two of the main institutions in assessing English level for students. We will have also people related to the sport, Alejandro Rubian is coming in to talk about the importance of English in sports. And Leslie Knight, an American basketball player, professional basketball player, is going to have later to talk about her experience, her problems of communication when she came to Spain and started to play. Okay? And the first one today is going to be Martin. Okay, he's from Armenia, and he's been an English teacher for over 20 years in Spain. He's a passionate English teacher, okay, that is very close to our philosophy, that we are passionate for teaching. And he's also working in the official school of languages, and he's the Cambridge representative of Cambridge University Press in Arizona and Alaska. Also an oral examiner for Cambridge exams for young learners, for certificate, and today he's going to give you a short presentation of the exam, and then we're going to have the first certificate with two candidates.
Two now, the layout is better than two.
Okay, so you can see how the exam.
Who are candidates willing to be?
Okay, let's relax and we'll read it later. Okay?
Probably volunteers.
Okay, so I need you to start.
Okay, good morning, thank you for coming. I will just explain a little bit what you're going to see, a brief description of levels in general here to common year of the framework, okay? I will explain then the pass-specific exam, okay? The timing, and what is assessment. And then we will do a real examination here with 2 or 3 candidates, so you can see how a real exam is indeed, okay? So let's start. I think you are all aware of the framework, yeah, all the levels. At the beginning, they were decided to put English names to all the levels before the numbers and the letters, but then people thought that probably it's difficult to translate into other languages, and the common European framework, as you know, has to be applied for all languages, not only English. Chinese, Russian, they decided to put A as an elementary, intermediate, and advanced, yeah, more or less. So, how it works. This part is in Spanish, but I will tell you in English if you don't mind, okay? All the levels here, as you can see, are made by descriptors which are written as a can-do task. Have you ever heard about can-do tasks? No? When you finish your unit, for example, you have a self-evaluation. It says, can you make a phone call? Can you take a taxi? Can you book a hotel? Yeah? These can-do tasks are taken from Common European Framework, and each level describes a can-do task. Okay, that's why in the book you can find more or less those descriptors. Can do. Okay, these are for all languages in the world or European, and these are the main institutes. We're not speaking about young learners, as you know, for primary levels. Here is the correlation with the Cambridge exams, CAT, and first advanced and CPE, according to the Common European Framework level of reference. Okay? Let's do a couple of can-do statements for first. For example, somebody who is able to understand principal ideas of complex texts. Okay, so publishers may have to puzzle it out and include into the texts to fulfill these can-do tasks. For example, another one can be in touch with an English speaker, and another can-do statement of B2. Okay. Okay, the process of elaborating an exam takes 13 months, 2 years and a half. Before it goes live, before you take the exam, it has been pre-tested during 30 months. It has a research and validation database where the exam is being taken. There are a lot of hundreds of people writing the items. Then it goes to pre-testing to 37 countries. People who take, for example, let's take the first certificate exam. They are pre-testing in 37 countries all the candidates who took the first certificate, so they can see if it fits the level or not. Okay? So if it doesn't fit, it goes twice in the pre-testing, and it includes to the item bank before it goes live. Okay, as you can see, those texts are real, taken from real resources, and it makes 4 skills, as you already may know: listening, reading, speaking, and writing. Yeah. The first certificate, there is first and first for school. There is no difference in terms of certificate. It's the same certificate. Just there are teenagers, or if you want to have a birth certificate for schools, it is more suitable for the word and frame of a teenager. Okay, there are 5 modules: reading 1 hour, 3 sections of reading, writing 1 hour and 20 minutes, 2 compositions. 1 is compulsory, and to choose 1 out of 5. Use of English 45 minutes, 4 sections, and listening for 40 minutes, 4 sections, 2 monologues, 2 dialogues, and the speaking 14 minutes. Okay, there are 4 parts to the speaking test, and we will see later. And the exam takes totally 3 hours 59 minutes, not taking into account the breaks. There are 10 minutes breaks between this part and this part, and there is a long break between writing and use of English, 20 minutes usually. It depends. Each exam center decides to do 20 minutes or 30 minutes, or instead of 10 minutes, probably it can be 5, so it's flexible, but it's a must. They have to have those breaks. Okay, and the speaking can be during 3 weeks before the exam session and 1 week or a couple of days after the exam. It's because of the questions to manage and to organize how the speaking can be made. Okay. Can I change the page, or are you taking notes? Yeah? This is the whole structure. Here there are the young learners, and these are CAT for schools, and these are classical Cambridge exams, CAT first, CAE and FCE. You may see here downfalls and rising. I will explain this now later in terms of first. Are you aware what is that or not? Do you know what is that? No, I will explain it now to you. The results. The result is the sum of all 5 parts. So each part has 20% of value. As you know, the first certificate is going to be changed in 2015. Yeah, did you know that? I will explain that to you. Here, the use of English is going to be introduced into the reading. So it will soon be reading and use of English. And instead of 1 hour, it will take only 1 hour and 15 minutes. Okay? It will be shorter. All the parts will be shorter, but okay, it will be joined into one. So there soon will be no 5 parts, but only 4. Okay? So in that case, it will be 25 instead of 20, but in 2015 January, okay, it will go live. The results. Now, if you get more than 80%, you will get not an advanced certificate, but you will get a first certificate that will show, that will tell you that this candidate showed ability of a C1 level, but it is not a C1 certificate, okay? And it depends on the institution you are going to introduce, to give the if, for example, this is for Spain, and somebody asks you for a C1, yes, you can show that you have a C1, but it's the first certificate. So a university that requires Cambridge Advanced, you can't say that this is a C1, because it says Cambridge First. Do you understand? So you do ability, but it doesn't say that you have a C1. All right? Sorry. Then grade B is 75 from 79, and grade C 60 to 74. So the level to pass the exam is a 6%. In the PET, it's 7. Okay, PET you have to have 7. And if you have less than 60 until 45, it will give you the down drop level, the level B11, okay, a B1 level. So you will get a certificate. It will not say that it is first, but it will say that you have reached a B1 level. So, okay, but if it is less than 45, you will fail the exam. No certification will be given to you from Cambridge, okay? And all the candidates are going to get the statement of results where you can see your performance of each part. Okay, how you did each part in the statement of results. Okay. All the candidates more than 45% will get it. These are a couple of certificates that you can see. For example, this is a grade C, okay, a B2 it says. Okay, in PET is a different because it's passed with distinction, passed with merit, and passed. But in first advanced and proficiency, A, B, and C. Okay, the assessment. Let's see. This is, for example, a PET, a pass, and it says B1. Can you see? Yeah. This is pass with distinction of PET, and it says performance at pass with distinction because it is more than 90%. Demonstrates an ability at level of Council of Europe of B2. Okay, so if you get more than 90 PET, you will get B2, but it still says that it is a PET. Okay, it doesn't say that it is first. Right? The recognition is huge. There are thousands of companies that recognize and requires certification of Cambridge. And the format of the speaking. The speaking are 2 examiners, an interlocutor who gives indications and asks questions, okay, or moderates, and an assessor who only listens, okay, and an assessor can't take notes, just listens to you, okay. It can be close to the interlocutor or behind or wherever, okay. With 2 candidates with individual turns and interaction, 2 or 3 if it is an uneven number of candidates, but always the last couple, okay, last candidates. Timing. So pair and group of 3. The first part, 3 minutes, okay, which is an interview, you will see later. Part 2, 4 minutes. Part 3 and 4, 7 minutes. So totally 14 minutes. It is strictly timed. You will see the clock on the chair, on the table with you. Oh, you need to take those, please, then, okay. The format, the first part is an interview. I think we should start later. In 5 minutes we will start. Part 2 is a long term, part 3 collaborative task, and part 4 discussion. Okay, I will put all those parts during the exam so you can see where we are in each moment. And the assessment criteria, this is very important. They are being paying attention in 5 different skills: grammar and vocabulary, discourse management, okay, which is paying attention to the extent, relevance, coherence, and cohesion of your speech, pronunciation, intonation, strength, and sounds, and interactive communication. Those 4 are being assessed by the assessor, okay? And the last voice is a global achievement of the interlocutor. So both examiners are assessing you, okay? The assessor gives all those 5, 4, and the last one, global achievement, is the interlocutor, the person who speaks to you, okay? In interaction, you have to pay attention in your initiating, responding, exchanging info, developing interaction. Okay? Okay, let's go back now to this part. Yeah? And let's start the real exam. Yeah? Who wants to be candidates and feel the experience of the real exam? Any volunteers? No? Now you can take notes on all of the questions that you have, okay, during these 14 minutes, okay, we will do the, for 2 candidates, or 2 candidates, any volunteers, do you want to or not? Anyone? This is an unique opportunity for you. So think, take your seat. Yeah, okay. Let's choose something interesting and curious. Okay. Good. Don't be afraid, I'm not going to send you. Okay, just relax. Okay. Again, this. I need some. Sorry. This is my clock. I'm not going to call anyone. Okay. All right. As you can see, everything is scripted, is written. Any examiner can't ask any other question which is not written here, okay? So it is made for you to make sure that you have the same experience everyone, all candidates, okay? We're doing now the interview, okay? Good morning, my name is Armen, okay? And this is my colleague, whatever can be, okay? For example, Chris. And your names are? Christina. I will take note of Christina, and yours? Leticia. Thank you. Can I have your mark sheets, please? You will have your mark sheets before entrance, and you give the mark sheets to the examiner, okay? Thank you very much. And I'll pass to the assessor. Thank you. First of all, we would like to know something about you, okay? Where are you from, Leticia?
I was born in Connecticut, but I have been living here.
Okay, and you?
I'm from here.
Okay. What do you like about living in South Africa?
Well, I would like to live in my city, also my friends, my family, everyone, everything. One person is living here, and also I'm here from Africa, and for health, and connected here for, I don't know, maybe try to know what is more well as my level. One year and a half to stay living in one place, so I don't know.
Thank you. And what about you? What do you like about living in Paris?
I think that Jornadas could be advantages big city like Madrid, Bilbao, or Barcelona, because it has shopping centers and airports and stations, but at the same time, it's not as big as the other cities, so the distances are shorter and there are not a lot of traffic jams, and it's easier to move around the city.
Thank you very much. This part, try to be as short as possible, okay? More or less 15 seconds. You say your answer and the reason why, okay? So be short, more or less 15 seconds, okay? Then there are 5 banks of questions that the examiner, the interlocutor chooses 2 questions for each candidate, okay? I will choose, for example, there are different topics: friends and family, education, likes and dislikes, celebrations, and travel, and any question. Christina, okay. Christina, do you prefer to get up early in the morning or stay up late at night?
I prefer to get that pretty early in the morning because I think it's better. I feel like I have more time for do my time and maybe make more things. I really like to go to bed early, so maybe better.
Thank you. Christina, what's your favorite time of the day? Sorry? What's your favorite time of the day?
I really like the time for breakfast.
Thank you. Leticia, who are the most important people in your life?
I play basketball. I was a professional basketball player, so I think that the most important person in my life was a coach. He was dead last year. He had cancer, and he's the person who has taught me all that important things in my life, I think.
And what do you enjoy about learning English?
Learn new words and use the language for travel.
Thank you. In this part of the test, I'm going to give each of you 2 photographs. I'd like you to talk about your photographs on your own for about a minute, and also to answer a short question about partner's photographs. Okay? Christina, it's your turn first. Okay? Here are your photographs. They show people who are exercising in different ways. Okay? I'd like you to compare the photographs and say why you think the people have chosen to exercise in different ways. Okay?
Well, there are 2 pictures. In the first one, there's many people making a competition running. They are going together. I think maybe everyone is, they are all girls because I think there's any men there. And they're making a competition on fun. In the second picture, they are practicing like I don't know, maybe like a gym lesson. And there are links because I can see some noise. There practice some, I don't know, maybe for instance, some friends at maybe.
Okay, thank you. Do you often do exercise?
Yes, every day.
Okay. This answer should be 20 seconds.
Okay.
Try to answer a little bit more. Okay, no problem. Thank you. Leticia, here are your photographs. They show people looking at different types of information. I'd like you to compare the photographs and say why you think the people are looking at this information. All right?
Okay. The first picture is like an airport, and there are 2 passengers looking at the schedule. Perhaps they are looking at that schedule because they are trying to find their flight, if it's delayed or cancelled or something like that. And very useful thing when you're in an airport. And in the other picture, there are two guys. They are in the field hunting, and they're looking a map. Perhaps because they want to know where are they, or perhaps they are getting lost in that moment, and they have stopped to look for the map to know where they are.
Thank you. Cristina, do you enjoy walking in the countryside?
Yeah, I really like to work in the countryside. Normally, I like to work more than physical.
Thank you. We'll do part 3. Now I'd like you to talk about something together for about 3 minutes. Okay? Here are some things that are important to many people. Okay? First, talk to each other about why these things might be important to people, then decide which two are most important. All right?
For people or for us?
Yeah.
I'll repeat that again.
For people in general. Okay.
Talk to each other about why these things might be important to people, then decide which two are most important. All right?
Well, we have many pictures about, we can see the first one, a car, computer, a beat, fashion, I don't know, maybe money, food, and house. I guess that's the kind of people, yeah, I tend to see these pictures.
I think that it's a bit general because I don't think that all the people think that these are the most important things in your life. But it's true that this one that it's money, money is the thing that in most of cases that gives you the opportunity to get the other things like car, computer, or house to be able to travel in a paradise place, to get the fashion clothes. So I think that perhaps the money is the thing that's around all
I think it depends, yeah, what are you interested in. But I think the most important thing is the food for myself. Yeah, you need for surprise, you need for living. Anyway, you need, yeah, in this kind of world, you need money for surprise anyway. Yeah. You need money for the food, maybe you can, I don't know, maybe have a farm or whatever. But the rest of the features is depends more your hobbies maybe or more, yeah, your interest more, I don't know, for example, for me, I'm too interested in cars or maybe in fashion sense or houses, I don't know. Things that other people love.
I feel the lack of a very important thing in our lives that is sport, a healthy life. It's true that there is a picture of a salad that perhaps seems part of having a healthy diet to be slim and a healthy person, but it's true that I, my own opinion, for me, to do exercise or sport would be an important thing in our lives.
Okay. Well, here I must confess that you haven't met which two are the most important. So you have to an agreement to choose or not to agree, or yeah, two options which you haven't done. Okay, so the task is not completed in here. Okay, and try to describe each picture. Okay, even briefly, but try to discuss and talk about each picture. And which is very important, don't look at the interlocutor when you are interacting. It's an interaction between you two. It's not interaction because as you can see, the interlocutor doesn't sit at this stage. Okay, so just try to interact in a natural way and not agree always. Okay, disagree, give your opinion. If you are lack information or ideas, just discuss another picture. Okay. All right. So, and the last one, which is a discussion, are going to give you two questions, more or less, about the topic that you have done the interaction about, and you have to put together. Do you think we have too much technology in our lives? Okay. Always when this question is asked to both of the candidates, and you have to take the question. Who takes the question first can answer the question, okay? But if the candidates don't start after a couple of seconds, the interlocutor might say he or she will make you say, okay?
I think yes, absolutely. I can't imagine the day waking up and not taking my cell phone to message or Facebook or emails or things like that. And I think that nowadays all that you want to do is using a cell phone or iPad or computer.
Do you agree, Cristina?
I agree that sometimes, and then it's a little bit risky because maybe years ago we used cassette. Do you remember the cassette? Or yeah, something like that. And now we only have so maybe you can get everything you phone out in your phone and everything. Of course, it's easier. Of course, it's easier if you use this kind of technology. And I think now we used to do it in this way. Anyway, we would survive it if we didn't know this kind of technology. No, sometimes it's a little bit crazy for the time. If you now say, okay, you don't have any phone, you don't have any computer, you take computer. But of course,
Thank you. How important do you think it is for people to learn other languages?
I'm really sorry that I have to say Spanish people if you compare with other places. We are a really disaster. So,
Do you agree with that?
I think that it's very important learning languages for work, for travel, for your own use as a person. But as Christina said, I have the same opinion that in Spain, people are very bad learning English. When you go to other countries and ask everyone in English, and everyone could answer you. It doesn't matter the age, and old people, young people, and in Spain it's really difficult.
Thank you very much. And that is the end of the test. Goodbye and good luck.
thank you very much.
Okay, any questions? Do you have any questions? No? No questions? Well, try to maximize, as you can see, the examen is huge, okay? The photos are huge, they are very big. Don't be afraid of the, I can't show them to you because it's strictly confidential, okay? But probably the topics, I can tell you a couple of topics, okay? Of the general pictures, which are, for example, eating outside, buying things, studying together, bike journeys, the photos, okay, the pictures, in the mountains, painting, looking at things, making music, exercising, finding information, waiting, using cameras, free time activities, reading, different fields, difficult situations. These are pictures, okay? And the interaction can be about what's important to people, which we did now first, okay? The internet, sports center, city life, neighbors, communicating, school reunion, and on the beach. All right? That's the end of our talk. If you have any specific question or no? Yes.
In the second part, they have the two photos.
Yes.
You have to describe one and then the other, or give your opinion about.
Yeah, usually those two pictures there are steps to follow. Try to think about the topic of two thinkers, what is common, because usually they are together, okay? First one, what is common? And second, what is different? Contrasting, okay? And using connectors. While, meanwhile, whereas, contrasting, okay? Both of them too, okay? If you finish before 1 minute, tell your own opinion of the picture, okay? In the last 20 seconds or 15 seconds, think about your. In my point of view, I would choose this one, for example. Okay? Thank you for the question. Yeah?
In part 3,
Yeah?
when we have a lot of photos,
Yes?
we have to describe all the photos or not?
You have to go through every single picture. It is better if you can think about all the pictures, but don't kill, please, all the pictures at once. Okay, because there are usually two candidates, and the first one is so nervous that are killing all the pictures at once. This, I don't like. Huh? Yeah, do you understand? Try to speak about one picture, your opinion, and give the ball to the candidate, to the other candidate. The other has to take the information, agree or disagree, add his own opinion, and link to another photo, okay? So it's a kind of giving, taking, adding, and taking another one, okay? It's very important how you interact between you and respect and give terms, okay? Don't pretend to speak too long, because to speak too long doesn't show the knowledge, but yes, try to be very precise and correct and logical, okay? Don't use a phrasal verb that you usually don't use, or it's not in your mind, or it's not in your life. It's not active. But yes, demonstrate all the possible knowledge of grammar. Make a list at home, for example, of all the knowledge of grammar that you are feeling comfortable with. And try to incorporate in your speech all different grammar structures. Okay? At least try to use present perfect continuous, okay? And simulate. Don't give it for granted, okay? Simulate everything. If you see a picture, you're not sure what you see, you say it might be a woman, yeah? It might be she seems, yeah? It seems to me that, but not say she's ugly person, no, okay, or she's nice, or she seems to me nice, okay, so this simulation is very important here, okay? Any other questions?
Sorry, could you explain again what happened when you get a high mark in a first test?
Yes.
Did you really get C1?
No, as I
Just
told you.
it's clear that you.
You have ability of the C1, but it doesn't say that you have a C1. And it doesn't say that you cannot take the advanced, for example, okay? Because it's a different level. The exams are completely different. And advanced is, the C1 is really, really difficult to get to achieve. So it gives you ability, because you are more than 9, okay, to communicate at that level, but you don't have that level, okay? Be there in your mind, all right? Any other questions? More questions? No? Okay. Well, nothing else. If you have any other doubts or whatever, well, I wish you good luck, okay? And this is my email. If you have any questions, you can give me send me an email and I can explain anything you would like to. Okay? Thank you, Enseñalia. Okay? This was the first talk, this beautiful venue place. Thank you for inviting me to give that talk. And I hope to see you on our next occasion. Thank you for coming. But don't want to do that.
Thank you very much. See you for having. Okay. our next person to talk is going to be Leslie. Leslie Knight. She's an American basketball player at Mount Gilder in Sarasota. She's from Minnesota, and she studied a bachelor in communications, and then a master in science and organizational leadership. Yes, correct. Okay, and she's been a professional player for over 6 years in Europe, and she's going to tell you her experience since she came to Spain. She's fluent in Spanish too, but she's going to do the talk in English. Okay, and ask her as many questions as you can. Okay, make the most of this and practice your English with her. Okay, all yours.
All right. Good morning, or almost afternoon, I guess I should say. My name is Leslie, as Nancy said, and I'm from Minnesota. Does anybody here follow basketball at all? Men's and the NBA? Does anybody know who Ricky Rubio is? Ricky Rubio. Yeah. Yes, he plays for the Minnesota Timberwolves, so that's where I'm from. And maybe you know where Minnesota is, but it's not a very touristy place. So you have California in the west, New York in the east, and Minnesota directly in the middle, right underneath Canada. It's really cold there. They've had a lot of snow, and it's below 0 every morning. So hopefully in the spring it'll start to get a little bit warmer. But I came to Spain 5 years ago in 2009. And before I came to Spain, I played 1 year in Switzerland, in the very south of Switzerland, in right near the Italian border. So there, they spoke Italian. And I didn't study Italian in high school or college. I did study Spanish, but I had no idea about Italian. So during that year, I started learning and I took classes. And then I came to Spain and I had to speak Spanish. And as well as you guys know, when you're in school and you're studying English, it's definitely not the same as when you actually go to a place and you're forced to speak and listen in that language. So I could read and I could write, but talking was really difficult for me. And so when I started talking with my Spanish teammates in Madrid, they were looking at me like, who is this American girl with this Italian accent speaking in Spanish? She's American, and I was confusing. I would say cosa in vez de que, and I would say Louis y me instead of ella and él, and it was just an absolute mixture of disaster. But little by little, I continued to improve my Spanish, and I started to remember how to conjugate the verbs, and my teammates were really helpful. They were constantly correcting me, which was great because I needed all the help that I could get. And I remember my first year living in the apartment. I was living with a girl from Vigo, from Galicia, and then another girl from Canada, and then another girl from Leon. And so we had a mixture of people in our apartment, and it was just so funny because looking back, we were constantly playing Pictionary, where we were constantly, we were always using our hands and using our faces to describe, what we wanted to eat for dinner, or what we did over the weekend, or, it was just a constant game of trying to figure out what the other person was saying, because my Spanish was not good. The Canadian, her Spanish was not good. And then the one girl from Leon, Vigo, she spoke okay English, but the one teammate from Leon didn't speak any English. And so it was just a constant, I wish there was a video camera in our apartment to just, film what was going on a daily basis. And then on the court, my coach was constantly speaking in Spanish. And it's easy because you have visuals and you know more or less how to play basketball, and so you can kind of understand what he's trying to say. But then there are other moments where it's just like, I have no idea what you're saying, and I'm really sorry if I'm making mistakes, but it is what it is. And on defense, when you're playing defense with a team, you're constantly trying to communicate, talk to your teammates. I've got your help, deny, screen, and I was confusing the two words espalda and esquina. Okay, so every time somebody would cut to the corner, I was constantly yelling, espalda, espalda, and my teammates were like, what is she saying back? You know, there's somebody in the corner. Why doesn't somebody go to the corner? And finally, once my teammates had a little bit more confidence with me and they didn't feel so bad about correcting me, they're like, Leslie, espalda means back, but you're trying to say corner, esquina. And I'm like, oh my gosh. You know, how many other mistakes have I been making that they've just been too afraid to tell me about or embarrassed? But that was just, we still laugh about it today. Let's see, other things that I wanted to tell you about. I would say that one of the reasons why I was able to improve my Spanish so much was because I'm not a very shy person. I'm not very timid. And so if I make a mistake, it's completely, you know, like, whatever, I made the mistake, it's fine. This isn't my native language, and it's obvious that I'm going to make mistakes. And I think it also helped that my Spanish teammates were really welcoming, and they were really friendly, and they were non-judgmental, and they just helped me all the time. But like when I was in Switzerland, we would go running, you know, for conditioning, and there was this little girl named Naomi, and she was maybe 15 years old, and she was running with me, and she knew a little English. So I would just run alongside of her, and I'd say, Naomi, how do you say good morning in Italian? You know, how do you say, how are you? And we would just run laps, and she would just gibber away telling me how to say these things. And so I think it's so important for people who live in other countries to not be shy, to not be embarrassed, to not be timid, which is really difficult to do. And thankfully, I have teammates who, you know, who love me and who care about me, and I don't feel that embarrassed with them. But really, that's how you improve, is making mistakes. And I have a boyfriend, and he's Spanish, and he has a hard time speaking to me in English because I think he's nervous about making mistakes. And I think that's a general thing about people in Spain, is everybody tells me, oh, Spaniards, we get so embarrassed and we don't want to make mistakes and we're really shy. I'm like, to heck with being shy, don't be shy. I mean, this isn't your normal language, it's fine. Talk, make mistakes. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to say, oh, that's horrible, you know, like, you're awful, you made a mistake. No, it's completely normal. So I think that's one of the biggest things that has helped me with my Spanish, is just, you know, going for it. Just go for it. And little by little, you'll get better, because there's only, you have to practice to get better at things. I mean, same with when you're a little kid and you're learning how to eat. How many times does the food go to your face or go to on the floor? It's because you've never done it before. So it's the same thing with speaking another language. Another thing, I think, just being positive with yourself. When I was in high school and when I was in college, I never thought that one day I would be living in a country where I would be forced to speak Spanish on a daily basis. I mean, it never once crossed my mind. I always thought that I would live in the United States, I would work there, I would be with my family, you know, that I would never really need to learn another language. And here I am. I've been here in Spain for 5 years, and it's like, wow, I have to use Spanish to go to the doctor, to go to the supermarket, to go to all these places, to connect with my teammates, because I'm a pretty social person, and if I wasn't able to connect on an emotional level with my teammates, I would probably be depressed. I mean, because there's a 7-hour time difference between Minnesota and Spain, and so my family and my friends, they're not waking up until I'm eating lunch. And then I practice, and I'm tired at midnight or 1 o'clock, and I'm going to bed, and they're just getting home from work. So it's hard to speak with your family on a daily basis. And I'm so thankful that I studied Spanish, because I'm able to connect with my teammates, and they see me as more of a teammate and not just the foreigner. Because on a lot of teams, you have the foreigners and the Americans, and they don't speak to anybody, and they kind of just do their own thing. But for me, that's just impossible. I could never do that. I want to be a part of it. But just what I was going to say was being positive with yourself, because this is day after day after day. And I remember my first and second year when I was playing in Alphabettas, my teammates, they would go out after the game to the bar or to the dance club or something. And I would be like, oh man, I don't know if I want to go, because I know I'm not going to understand anything, and the music is going to be loud, and so then that's going to make it even worse. And then I'm going to get tired, and it's going to be 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm going to want to go home because I'm not used to being out that late, because in the States, the bars close at 2 o'clock, and these girls stay out till 6. And I was just like, oh gosh. But I forced myself to go because I'm like, Leslie, if you don't put yourself out there and if you don't go, you're never going to improve, and your teammates are never going to treat you like one of the rest. And so I went, and I remember we went to Malaga because one of my coaches was from Malaga, and we were there for 4 days. And my Canadian teammate didn't come, so it was just me. And after the 4 days, my head was like pulsing because every second of the day you're trying to concentrate so hard to understand what people are saying, and you just get so tired. But being positive with yourself, I mean, you just have to say, laugh at it, and just, day after day, little by little, I'm going to get better. Try to focus on one word, and then once you learn that word, you'll realize it starts popping up all over the place, and you'll start hearing it all the time, and then you just keep learning and keep learning. But being positive was a big deal for me. Not throwing myself a pity party and holding myself away in my room and just thinking, why doesn't anyone speak to me in English, or why doesn't this, or why doesn't that? It's just like, Leslie, this is what it is, and speak and smile. And if you go up to somebody and I say, how are you? How was your weekend? They're going to talk back to me. But if I don't say anything to anybody, my teammates might not even come over and ask me how I'm doing. You know what I mean? It's like, you can't expect people to come to you to ask you how you're doing. You got to branch out and go to other people. And especially being a foreigner, that was huge for me, to just go and be social and try and try and try. And once they see that you have interest in trying, then they really start opening up, and they really, they take you in. So, what else? Other little things that have helped me, reading the newspaper. That has helped. Now that I have a Kindle, and I'm all modern, with the Kindle, I have Spanish books on it, and then you have your dictionary in there. So every time that I come across a word that I don't know, I just use the dictionary and I see it and I'm like, oh, okay, that's what that means. So reading has really helped. I can totally tell the difference. When I'm reading during the day and then I go to practice or I'm with my teammates, my ability to speak is much better than if I'm reading in English during the day or if I'm not using Spanish much during the day. It's incredible how that changes. I mean, I don't study these things, but I'm sure people study the differences of, what your brain does and how that makes you change, and how it makes you able to do things better. I think it's really interesting. Another thing that's helped me is WhatsApp. Because before, when I first came to Spain, WhatsApp didn't exist. And I didn't have a real phone, and I was doing a prepaid phone, where you pay every week or you pay every month. And when you talk on the phone, it burns your credit like that, and it's just a waste of money. Well, now with WhatsApp, it's free. So constantly during the day, I'm receiving messages from my teammates and from friends all in Spanish, which is a good thing and a bad thing, because do you think people write exactly grammatically correct when they write with WhatsApp? Don't know. I mean, I have a teammate from Cadiz, from the South, and she leaves letters out all the time in her messages, or she changes the Q to a K, or it's like a puzzle for me trying to figure out what this girl is saying in her message. But I'm forced to write, and I can honestly say that I don't write grammatically correct all the time. I take the shortcuts as well. But WhatsApp has really helped me because it's constantly, when I'm in the United States, I'm still receiving those messages, and it's like I'm still connected to Spain and to the language, which has been really, really nice, actually. When I was in Alcobendas, I also did conversation classes. So I would get together twice a week to eat lunch with this man, and we would just speak in English. And it was great because not only was he improving his English, but we also talked about cultural things in Spain and talked about phrases, because in Spanish there are a ton of phrases, dichos, that I think are really funny, and they're not normal for me, so I guess that's why I think they're so funny. But just having that conversation class with him was great because I learned a lot about Spain. And I don't know, as I'm going, if anybody has any questions, just raise your hand and interrupt me. That's not a problem at all. I think another obstacle that I had to overcome was the difference in the eating hours. Here in Spain, what time do we eat? 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Okay, what time do we have dinner? 10. 10 is like somewhat early sometimes. Okay, even midnight, sometimes people on a Friday, you know, if you're all getting ready to go out, well, maybe you don't eat till midnight. Well, in the United States, what time do people tend to eat lunch? You can say. Huh?
7.
Lunch? 12, yeah, 12, okay, so 12 o'clock. And then dinner, you're right, dinner is around 7, or I have friends whose families eat at 5. They start eating dinner at 5 o'clock. I mean, their mother is like, bam, bam, at the table, 5 o'clock, you're here, this is what we do. And my family is a little bit more, you know, my parents, they work, maybe they come home at 6 o'clock, then maybe they go to the gym, and then by the time they kind of sit down and watch the TV and look at the mail, it's like 8 o'clock and we're having dinner. But here in Spain, it's, you know, 10 o'clock, but we have practice from 7 to 10:30. By the time you shower and drive home and find a parking spot, it's maybe 11:15 when you're having dinner. And so my first year was really difficult because I was like, I'm hungry, it's 12 o'clock, it's noon, it's lunchtime, and my teammates, my roommates are not anywhere to be found. So I'm like, if I want to be able to connect with my teammates and talk to them and see how they're doing, I'm gonna have to wait 2 more hours, 2.5 more hours to eat lunch with these ladies. And I was like, man, I'm hungry, you know, food, I don't mess around with food, I love food, and so it was really difficult at first. But slowly but surely, my body kind of adjusted to this later eating hour. And it was great because then we could sit down, we could eat, we could talk, and it was much better than sitting by yourself alone, eating lunch by yourself. And then same with dinner. I mean, dinner was really tough too, and I just kind of learned, okay, if I eat lunch at 2:30, I'll have a snack at 6 or 7, then I'll go to practice, and I'll come home and I'll have dinner. So I think just being flexible, having an open mind, just being willing to adjust to new cultures and new, you know, it's not like it's bad or good, it's just different. And I think that has helped me quite a bit to adjust to Spain. But I think if you talk to my friends or if you talk to other Spanish people, they would say that I'm pretty outgoing or I'm pretty casual. And so for me, maybe it wasn't as difficult to adjust to the Spanish culture. But there have been difficulties. I think something funny is that here in Spain, vulgar words are pretty common. You know, like speaking and saying palabrotas is really common. And in the United States, depending on who your family is or who your friends are or what the environment is, it's not so common. And my first year playing basketball, I didn't really understand much. So it was just kind of like, I didn't understand what the coach was saying. And then the second year, and the third year, and the fourth year, I was like, did he really just say that? I mean, really? But it's just, you know, so normal. And in the beginning, it was a little difficult because I felt a little frustrated or a little mad, like, how can he say that to me, or how can he say that to her? But then I kind of changed my brain a little bit, and I just thought, oh, you know, it's not really that bad of a thing. I mean, people aren't taking it the same way that I'm taking it because I'm just not used to it, if that makes sense. So those little differences. I'm just trying to think of other funny stories that have happened to me, but please, if anyone has a question, just shout it out.
Have you ever said something like an insult in English to a referee?
During a game?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Really?
Really, I mean, I'm just me. Don't stereotype everybody in the United States for what I'm telling you, but I guess I'm pretty correct,
Really bad
and I'm pretty educated. What?
So a really bad referee?
To a really bad referee? No. I mean, and in English, I don't usually use bad words. I mean, it's just, I'm not accustomed to it.
I remember Kristen,
Uh-huh.
and the funniest thing that happened in a game with her was really shy, but suddenly she was so mad that she said, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
Right.
Obviously, the referee didn't understand her.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
So you never get so angry.
In English, probably not. But now that it's so common, but in English, it's not as common for me. So it doesn't.
But you say things in Spanish to the referees or in English?
Usually I speak in Spanish with the referees, but they're pretty nice. They'll tell me something in English and they'll say, 2 shots, or they'll say it's your ball, or and I look at them and I'm like, that's really a nice detail to try to speak to me in English, and then I usually respond to them in Spanish and I'll tell them that their English is really good or something like that, and then they'll look at me and they'll say, hablamos en español, and I'm like, well, whatever you want, but it's fine. But I mean, it's a nice detail that people try to speak with you in English, yeah. But it's just, I think the culture is a little different. Like, if I were to say the F word to a referee at home, I would probably be out of the game. I mean, I don't know, it's just a different culture. So, but, any other questions? I really like Spanish food. That's been kind of an adjustment to me because at home we don't have croquetas, we don't have tortilla, we don't have jamon, we don't have all these things. And I remember I was on the plane one day and there was this group of psychologists. They were all going to the United States for a conference, and they were talking to me, and we were talking about food, and they were so surprised that I don't eat croquetas in Minnesota. And they said, how do you survive? How do you live? What do you eat? And I just thought it was so funny because, of course we survive. We just eat different things. When it's your birthday party or when you're having friends get together, there are different things that you serve. I mean, but now I really like croquetas, and I like cocido, and I like paella. I mean, I try everything. Callos, not so much, but pretty much everything I've tried. So that's been good. And then learning to cook. I like learning to cook Spanish food. Right now I currently live with 2 teammates who are from Argentina. And that's been an interesting thing because their Spanish is quite different from Spanish that we speak here in Spain. And so I've learned different words from them and their accent and whatnot. In the United States, they teach Spanish, which a lot of people, and all sorts of languages, and a lot of Spaniards look at me and they're surprised. Or a lot of people, when they say, where are you from? And I'm like, well, where do you think I'm from? And they say Norway, Russia, Germany, not Slovenia, but Serbia. And I'm like, no, I'm from the United States. And they look at me and they're just shocked because I think the stereotype is that in the United States we don't learn other languages. It's just English, English, English. Everybody has to speak English. But that's really not the case because, well, depending on where you live and your economic status, what? Spanish. Yeah, there are a lot of people who speak Spanish, even in Minnesota, which is in the north, compared to Texas or California, where Spanish is everywhere. It's really common. But, for example, I know a family who have 2 children. They're 7 and, well, maybe like 9 and 6 years old. And before school in the morning, they go and take Spanish class. They go to Spanish class before school even starts. And not just them, but busloads of kids go and are taking Spanish in the morning. And these kids are 7, 8, 9 years old. And I'm like, wow. I mean, I've never heard of anything like that before. And it really surprised me. I was like, well, good job, way to go. And every year there are more immersion schools popping up all over the place. And even my strength and conditioning coach from college, they just had a baby, and the baby is going to an immersion daycare school, or immersion daycare. So ever since this baby is little, she is in an immersion Spanish situation, which I thought, wow. It's called El Jardín Secreto, I think is what the school is called. And then another friend of mine, their daughter is in a Chinese immersion school. And so I think every year in the United States, it's becoming more and more important, and people are finally realizing that the world is becoming so small with technology that learning another language is just so important. So I think I started learning Spanish when I was maybe 10 in elementary school. And then I studied it in junior high, and then I studied it in high school, and then I minored in Spanish in college. But you could also do that in German or French, or there were other languages that they were offering. So, but when I was learning it, it was always South American Spanish. it was ustedes, it wasn't vosotros. We never had to learn vosotros, never. And it was like they would do this boot. We would only have to learn the boot. We didn't have to learn these other things. And then I came to Spain, and I didn't even know what the Spanish accent was, because it's a lot of stuff, no gracias. And I arrived, and it was like, what are they saying? This doesn't sound like anything I heard in school. And I studied for 6 weeks in Venezuela in 2006. And there, of course, their Spanish was what I had learned in school. And then I came to Spain, it was completely different. And it just kind of blew me away, like, wow, I had no idea. But now I speak with a Spanish accent, and I use vosotros. I never use ustedes. I have one teammate from Tenerife, and she uses ustedes. And I think it's so funny. It's cute. I don't know. It's just different. Besides that, those are some of the differences. But there are a lot of people from Minnesota that travel abroad and go to Spain or go to South America. And so I think little by little the world is changing. I hope that other countries don't have this bad stereotype of the United States that we don't want to learn other languages, or that we're not open to learning, because a lot of people are. A lot of people are. So, there's pictures.
How long did it take you to speak really fluent Spanish?
How long did it take? I mean, I'm still working on my Spanish, but I'd say this year, maybe after 3 years, maybe. But I would always go home during the summer. So I was always home during the summer. I wasn't really in the culture. And then I would go back, and my teammates, because I played in the same team for 4 years, and my teammates, when I first came back, they'd be like, Leslie, you're speaking like an American. Oh, you've lost your accent. Oh, this and that. And then after a couple of weeks, they'd be like, okay, now you're back to normal. And I'm like, okay. So yeah, I mean, it takes time. Like when I went to Venezuela for 6 weeks, I thought, okay, I'm 6 weeks, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna learn, and it takes time, definitely. And I still make mistakes all the time, so it's a work in progress. But one interesting thing is that when I first came and we would go play against Bilbao, or we would go to Zaragoza, or we would go, and on the bus and on the AVE train, they would have movies. And they would always be in Spanish, of course. But the movies were maybe Friends, or it was something with Brad Pitt, or Angelina Jolie, or Will Smith, and they were obviously dubbed in Spanish. And I'd be sitting there in the bus looking at Will Smith speaking in Spanish, and I would think, this is so weird. This is just not right. And it really was tough for me. But now I go to the movie theater and I see Brad Pitt speaking in Spanish, and I think it's just normal. I'm like, oh yeah, of course he speaks Spanish, of course. And I'm like, when did that happen? I don't know. I can't tell you. On September 13th, my brain switched and I'm thinking Brad Pitt speaks Spanish. I can't say that, but it happened, and it seems completely normal to me now, which, I don't know. I'm sure people do studies about that too, and they have the times that it takes for people, but I also think everybody's different, so it's probably, timeline is different for everybody, but yeah, now I go to the movie and I don't even think about it. I'm not even concentrating on trying to understand what they're saying, because it just seems normal. So, and in practice as well, on the court, I'm not sitting there trying to really concentrate and focus on what my coach is saying, because it's just normal now. I don't know, thankfully. Thank you. Otherwise, it's difficult. But we have maybe, I don't know, 5, or what time is it? Oh, no, I'm speaking till 1 o'clock, right? Is my clock right? Have I only been speaking for 20 minutes? No.
It has been 20 minutes, 25.
Oh, really? And I have until 1 o'clock. I need some questions. Because otherwise, I don't know.
Why did you choose to learn Spanish?
Why did I choose to learn Spanish? I think in elementary school, when I was little, I think Spanish was the only option. And then when I went to junior high, which is like 13, 14, 15 years old, then they offered French and they offered German. But when I was in elementary school, it was the only one. And because I had started with it, I just continued with it. And I also thought, Spanish is one of the languages that's spoken most in the world. So I don't really want to learn French, or I mean, I would love to learn more languages, but I think Spanish is really useful. So that's kind of why I went that direction. But yeah, and then in the United States, in college, I was doing that English as a second language course, and so I went to elementary schools and I went to like churches where they provided ESL classes. So I was teaching English to Spanish speakers, but there's a big need for it, definitely. And now I think, gosh, it would be kind of fun to teach Spanish to English speakers and just talk about my experiences and, you know, I mean, I've learned a lot and I like the Spanish culture. I mean, I like flamenco and I like, salsa's not really Spanish, but it'd be fun to teach Spanish to English students. But when I was growing up, I was never the best in my class. You know, there were other students that were always better grammatically and always, you know, and I always thought, oh man, I can't do the next level because I'm not that good. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm speaking. I'm better than them. How did this happen? It's crazy, but it's inevitable when you're submersed in the language. I mean, it's inevitable that you're going to learn and you're just going to soak it up. But I think at the same time, there are a lot of Americans who come over and they don't soak it up because they don't want to, or they don't have interest, or they don't ask questions. I think asking questions is pivotal. But
Do you think that having like a Spanish boyfriend helps?
having a Spanish boyfriend definitely helps. Definitely helps, because little did I know that when I met him, he actually does know English, but he didn't want to speak it with me because he wanted me to improve my Spanish. So like a year after I met him, a couple of my friends came to visit who don't speak Spanish, and we're sitting there talking and having some tapas, and Juana started speaking in English to them. And I looked at him like, you speak English?
After a year.
Well, maybe not a year. It was probably like 4 or 5 months. But I was completely shocked. But he wanted to help me improve my Spanish. And so he just never, but now I've got him learning English little by little.
And in which languages do you speak each other?
That's an ongoing battle as well. I usually speak in Spanish to him. However, now I am constantly speaking more and more in English because I think, you know, my family speaks English, my friends speak English, and if I want him and my parents and my friends to have some sort of feeling between the two, he needs to learn English. And my parents, you know, it's difficult when you're almost 60 years old and whatnot. They know a couple words. They have vocabulary sheets, but my mom says polo instead of pollo, you know, or it's very difficult. But, so, I mean, he's improving. He reads lots of English, but he needs to speak more. But, I mean, I think about bilingual families, you know, where the mother speaks one language and the father speaks another. And I've read some articles about it and how ever since the children are born, the father will always speak Spanish and the mother will always speak English. And little by little, these children grow up just knowing that when I speak to dad, it's in Spanish, and when I speak to mom, it's in English. And I think, wow, you know, but it's not easy. I bet it's not easy because, I don't know, I mean, I would want to speak to my kids maybe in both languages, but you have to be really strict about it so that they don't get confused. But, yeah, I'm trying to speak more in English to him. And with WhatsApp and all. Yeah. So, other stories I can tell.
Can you tell us about your experience, like in Seminario, teaching those kids?
My experience in Seminario teaching. My experience has been good. When I was in Alphabettis, I was going to 4 different families and I had 9 different kids, and I was teaching English to them. So being with kids isn't too foreign to me. But it's difficult with kids because my youngest is 4 years old, and then the oldest is 6 years old. And so the 4-year-old, her pronunciation in her own language, which is Spanish, is still difficult, let alone in a different language. And I have nieces and nephews who are 4, 6, and 8. And so when I look at this 4-year-old, I'm thinking of my nephew. I'm like, I can't even imagine my nephew speaking a different language. But here I am, expecting this 4-year-old to tell me, hello, how are you, in English, you know, and it's difficult because I don't know exactly where to draw the line of being demanding and letting her speak to me in Spanish, letting her go a little bit, because they're only kids, it's difficult. But they do, the 6-year-olds, they have a pretty good level of English, and I think, wow, you are lucky. I mean, keep going with that because it's going to serve you, you know. But they seem to enjoy it, so that's good.
Yeah, they enjoy the class.
Well, I hope so. Yeah, we sing a lot of songs, and we dance, and Nicolas, he started crying the other day because we were doing this dance, and I think Javier gave him hit him right in the stomach, and then there were tears, and I was like, oh gosh, but for the most part, they're pretty good. They're pretty good. But yeah, Enseñale has been great. And this new center is beautiful. I mean, this place is like a lot. It really is. So, usually I'm not, yes. Have I ever considered writing articles? Well, it's funny that you asked that. Well, I write emails every week for the past 6 years since I've been in Switzerland. I write an email every week to my family and friends telling them about my experience during the week. And so, I mean, 2 or 3 pages probably, I write every week in English to my family and friends. And then at the bottom, I have this part that I put Leslie's loose ends. Como, do you understand loose ends? Like if I have a shirt and the threads are unraveling, there's like loose ends, you know? So they're just little details, little bullet points, little things that I think about that I want to tell my family and friends. So I talk about little things that I've learned during the week, little curious tidbits. For example, let's see. This week, I think I wrote, the other day I went to the supermarket, and the woman who was the cashier that was passing my food, her name was Soledad. And I stood there looking at this woman, thinking to myself, your name is solitary, loneliness.
Yeah.
And I just thought, is that kind of sad? Like, what mother or father? I'm sorry, is someone here named Soledad? No? Okay, but I just thought, you know, what mother or father would name their child Soledad? And then I thought, you know, there are also studies about names, and people with certain names grow into being certain types of people, or they're really outgoing, or they're introverts, or they're extroverts. And I thought, a person named Soledad, how would they grow up to be? Like, what would their character be like? You know, I mean, in English, I've never met somebody with the name solitary or loneliness. I mean, and so I was wondering, where does that name come from? Is it a saint, or is it a, yeah, probably? Okay. So those are just little interesting things that I put in my email to share with the rest of my friends and family. So I mean, if you call that an article, it's an email, but it takes me several hours. I mean, usually I do a little research, like if we go play in Zamora, I'll look on Wikipedia and look at Zamora and tell them a little bit about the history. Or when we played in Salamanca, which Salamanca is a beautiful city, I'll write about the buildings and when the city was founded. And then Zaragoza, of course, has a ton of history, so I've told them all about different things about Zaragoza, about the wind. The wind that keeps on blowing. So, you know, describing to them about Zaragoza is in like a desert or in a valley, right? Yeah. So that's kind of why the wind is always blowing. So that way my family and friends can kind of learn about Spain and live Spanish life through my experiences. But I do like to write. So, yeah. And that way, you know, when I'm a grandma someday when I'm 80 years old, I'll have those emails and I have those stories, and maybe I'll make a book someday, or, you know, I don't know. We'll see. But 6 years every week. So I don't know how many emails that is, but a lot. So. myself 5 years. Where do I see myself in 5 years? It's a very good question. I studied a master in leadership or science and organizational leadership, and basically that master degree, I did it online because I was in Spain, and so a lot of the classes were about emotional intelligence, social intelligence, how to lead groups, how to be a good planner, how to be a good leader, a lot of different things. And in the beginning, what I would really like to do or try to do would be a collegiate coach in the United States. Because in the United States, every college had, well not every college, but most colleges have basketball teams. And it's really appealing to me because it's not just basketball. These people, this is their full-time job. And so they spend time on the court with their players, but they also go recruiting. So they go to different high schools or they go to different states to look at different players. They write letters to these players. They call them to try to get them to come to their school. During the year, the coaches have to go to dinners and golf events. I don't golf, but and they have to speak. They do a lot of speaking engagements. And then you're in the university atmosphere, which universities in the United States, I went to University of Minnesota, which is 55,000 students. And there's a football team, and there's soccer, and there's swimming, and there's everything. And so this environment is really lively, and it's really energetic, and you're constantly surrounded by young people, and you're constantly surrounded by, athletes, and that's really appealing to me as well. And there's this is a court, you go to the games, and the stadium that I played in holds about 12,000 people. And when I was a freshman, when I was in my first year, there was a girl on my team who was a senior, and she was really good. And the year before, they had gone to the Final Four, so the top 4 teams in the whole United States. So the team was really good. And there were days where the whole stadium was full, 11,000 people. And it was so cool. And I just thought, wow, being a coach in this type of environment would be really fun. And not only that, but you recruit these young women to come to your school, and you're with them from maybe their junior year of high school through their senior year of college. And you can have a big impact on these young women. Because when I was a player, I had a couple coaches that really impacted my life for the good and for the bad. But the coaches that impacted me in a positive way, I think, wow, I could be that for somebody else. I could impact a young woman and help her in the direction of her life, and as well as help her on the basketball court. So that's really appealing to me because it would be a full-time job. But of course, that doesn't exist here in Spain. So who knows where I'm going to be living in the future, if I'm going to be living here, if I'm going to be living in the States. I don't know. But as of right now, that was the reason for doing my master's, because a lot of collegiate coaches have their master's, and it's, every year it's more competitive, and so anything that you can have to put you above the rest is good. But if I were to live in Spain, teaching English is great, but I'm not a teacher. I'm not a licensed. I didn't study to be that. But it would be fun. I know you guys have probably heard of Bond Radio. Bond. And speaking and helping people with their English is fun. But yeah, so I don't know. In 5 years, if I'll still be playing basketball, I have no idea. But I'm 27, about to be 28. So there's a woman who helps our team. She played until she was 40, which is not normal. She's like the oldest Spanish player who ever reached to be 40 years old, I think. Yeah. And I'm not going to play at 40, but I still love playing. So
I think that she could play longer. She was senior, so she has to stop, but I think that she would be playing.
yeah, she had back surgery. So after having back surgery, she was done playing.
But she's still running.
Oh yeah, she wanted to run the New York Marathon. What was it, 2 years ago? Mm-hmm. And she bought her ticket. She went to New York, all excited to run. What happened? Hurricane Sandy, and nobody ran the marathon. I mean, can you imagine spending the money to go to New York? Because it's like your lifetime dream to run the marathon, and then natural disaster and you can't run. But yeah. Anything else?
When you speak English to the Spanish people,
Uh-huh.
you try to be eager to ask to understand you, or and when you speak English with your American friends, you speak exactly like this.
That's a very good question. I think today I'm speaking pretty normal. Today I'm speaking, I feel comfortable, I'm just kind of speaking. I don't know you personally, so I'm just speaking. But it is true that when I speak to Spanish speakers in English, sometimes my English doesn't flow. I stumble, I'm searching for words because I'm thinking I want to speak clearly and I want to pronounce my words bien, good, and and you know it is kind of a mental block. But the stereotype is that in the Midwest, you know, you have the East, the West, and then the Midwest, which is where I live, Minnesota. People say that our accent is the most easy to understand. And people say that like, news reporters on television, they try to emulate the Midwestern accent because we're easier to understand. So I don't know how you guys feel listening to me, whether you understand everything I say or you're following everything. Okay, that's good. But you're right, because when I do speak to people, I usually try to slow down, pause, pronounce everything clearly. Because it's difficult, because I know what it's like trying to listen to Spanish speakers. My parents came a couple years ago, and my dad, you know, he'll talk and talk and talk, but he'll like go around in circles, and he'll talk about something, and then finally he'll arrive to his point. So when my dad is talking to one ma, I'm like, Dad, get to the point. Like, you know, stop using this vocabulary that he obviously doesn't know because it's, you know, it's what's the word? Words that are common for us, but you don't probably know them unless you are from there. And I was constantly trying to tell my parents, speak clearly, get to the point, try not to use all these words that he probably won't know. But for my parents, they've never spoken to non-English speakers, and so for them it was really difficult, and they couldn't do it. I mean, they couldn't do it. But and I was going to say something else now that you mentioned that. I forgot what I was going to say. But I mean, here in Spain, now I'm finally picking up accents. Like when someone is from Galicia, like, ah, you're from Galicia. When someone's from the south, I think, ah, you're from the south. Zaragoza, you guys have accents. The Manya, or yeah. There's a woman in Madrid, and we would talk. I would give English classes to her children. And I always thought, Blanca speaks different than everybody else. But I didn't know where she was from. And then I found out that she was from Zaragoza. And then I arrived here, and some of my teammates speak exactly like Blanca does. And I'm like, oh, that's why she speaks the way she speaks, because she's from Zaragoza, you know? So, it's just interesting. I mean, in the United States, you have all your accents as well. People from the south speak way different than people from the north. People from the east, way different from people from the west. So, it's just normal. But I'm glad you're understanding everything. This is great. Are you guys you're wanting to learn English for your jobs or for your own personal desire, or why do you want to learn English?
I think for like
Yeah.
because I haven't worked in any place who I need to.
I don't know. You don't need to speak English for your job.
No.
So you're just doing this because you want to.
Yes.
That's awesome. And for traveling, I mean, sometimes I think I'm so fortunate, I'm so lucky that I speak English because everywhere you travel, somebody is going to be able to understand you. But I was on the phone one day and a woman from Russia, she spoke no Spanish and no English. I was trying to help her fill out her passport sheet, and I'm like, oh my gosh, because in the United States, when you write your birthday, month, day, year. Spain, it's day, month, year. And I'm like writing her passport thinking to myself, oh my gosh, if I'm screwing this up, if I'm making mistakes, like are the authorities going to, you know, because I didn't know in Russia, does it go month, day, year, or does it go day, month, year, or, you okay? I have no idea. But, well, that's good. How about anybody else? You guys use English in your job, or? Both?
Until now, I never used English, but I start to work very often.
Okay.
I have stayed in Timor, London, and I think it's very similar experience.
Yeah. The experience is the same, or the accent? The experience? Okay, sure, yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of differences for you.
Yeah.
And even I went to London 2 years ago, and their accent is way different than my accent, and their vocabulary is way different than my vocabulary. And the stereotypical things were so true. Like, would you like a cup of tea? I'm like, sure, I would love a cup of tea. You know, like, it was very different.
Yeah, every day.
Right, yeah, English breakfast tea. Anybody else want to share? You're pointing at someone, but I don't know which male you're pointing at. With a scarf. What about you?
For travel, for example.
Yeah. Where would you like to travel?
This now I'm going to Paris.
Ah.
I, well,
Is it the first time you're going to Paris?
no, the second.
And you plan on speaking English there or French?
No, I think it's not bad. Travel for job.
Ah, it's for pleasure.
Yes.
Uh-huh. Okay. Awesome. I love Paris. What about your friend? Great job. Yeah, it's incredible. Some of my mates study engineering or nursing, and a lot of their books are in English. Engineering is hard enough as it is, let alone in another language. I mean, I think, wow, you guys are amazing. Like, you're doing engineering, you're having to learn in English. Because stereotypically, the people that are really good at math and numbers aren't very good at letters and writing. And then here they are, great at math and numbers, and they're also having to learn it in a different language. I think that's incredible. Yeah, I think if you were to say that to people in the United States, oh yeah, you're going to have to study neuroscience engineering, and you're going to have to do it in Spanish. A lot of people would say, what? No, are you crazy? But here in Spain, it's just what it is. How about you?
Maybe, well, I'm looking for a job as a student. Um, I'm not studying English right now.
Okay.
Maybe in the future, I would like to get the first letter or the SU one.
Okay.
Because now I have the but
What are you studying?
I'm studying marketing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I have a question.
Sure.
What was the most difficult thing for you to study Spanish? Maybe the verbs.
The verbs. I'm still trying to learn the verbs. For example, a ver. Hubiera, habría. I mean, there are so many changes to that verb. It just boggles my mind. Or the verb caber. I always say yo cabo. And then people laugh. They're like, Leslie, no, what is it? Capo. And so those are just irregular things that it's difficult. It's really difficult. In the very beginning, it was difficult for me because it's kind of the reverse of English. You don't say it in the same line. So in the beginning that was difficult, but now it seems normal. And actually now, when I write an email to a family member or a friend in English, sometimes I spell the word in Spanish. Like, because in Spanish you write how it sounds, but in English, for example, my last name is Knight. How do you think you spell my last name, Knight? How do you spell it? With a K, okay, you're smart. Yeah, it's like caballero, no? But when young children come to the gym and I have my jersey on and I say, what's my last name? And they speak K-I-N-I-G-H-T. And they're like, Kniggets. And of course, that's not how my name is pronounced. So sometimes when I'm writing, I have to stop and think, and I get really confused. I'm like, is this correct or is this correct? It just seems so normal to me to spell it how it would be in Spanish, And I'm like, man, English has got to be really difficult when you're learning to spell because the rules, it's like there are no rules. It's just really, I don't know if that's how you guys feel. Why are you studying English?
Huh?
Why do you want to study English?
Because I finished my studies. And now I want to go.
What did you study?
It's your
Okay, yeah, to make jewelry and, yep, cool. Very nice. Oh, that's okay. That's fine.
Looking back, you thought you said before. I think for Spanish people and for Italians as well, is an important difficult to. So in our languages, we speak in the same way as we write. And English is not a bit.
Exactly. Yeah. And well, French, Spanish, and Italian are all Romance languages, and they're all pretty similar. But English is, you don't have all the different verbs, but you have the writing and the pronunciation, yeah.
and the beginning of the year speak very fast.
Fast in Spanish? In the beginning, yes. In the beginning, I didn't know when one word stopped and another word started. But now, they speak and it's just normal, and when I'm speaking with my parents or with my friends, and maybe I'll say a phrase in Spanish, and they won't understand, so then I'll say it slower, and they still won't understand. I'm like, man, it's not that hard, is it? But then I have to think, Leslie, you were like that in the very beginning, but then once you know it, you think it's so easy that everybody can do it. But you have to remember, it wasn't always that easy. Yeah. Good.
I think these are the most people American pronunciation cases are.
For English speakers to pronounce, the most difficult
These are the worst places in USA
to understand. I would probably say
reproduce examples.
some examples. Oh gosh, I would probably say the South is probably the most difficult. I actually have never traveled very much to the South, so I can't speak from direct experience. But one time I was playing a basketball tournament and we were in North Carolina, and we were in the elevator with a team from Alabama. And they started talking, and I looked at my teammate and I was like, oh my gosh, they really talk like that. Because you hear stereotypes like y'all and, or say you all, y'all, and I don't even know what else they say, but stereotypes exist for a reason because there are people that represent those stereotypes. And when they were speaking, I could barely understand them. Really. And I thought, oh my gosh, we live in the same country and you speak English, but I cannot understand you. Or in the East, supposedly they don't pronounce their R's. So maybe someone from Boston might say, go and park the car. Park the car. But park the car. So just little things like that, I guess. But yeah, and then in Minnesota, our stereotype is that we elongate our O's in our vowels. So I'm from Minnesota. Don't you know? Don't you know? It's true because if I get interviewed after a basketball game and then I'm listening to the interview later, like, oh gosh, I'm so embarrassed. I cannot to sound like that. Because there was one little clip that was, I was saying, yeah, I think we played really good tonight. I think we've got some girls who can really shoot the ball. And then I listened to it and I thought, oh my gosh, shoot the ball. And yeah. But those are stereotypical things about Minnesota. I don't know if you guys have seen the movie Go. But there are, Minnesota is famous for, I'm from Minnesota, don't you know? So, yeah. But I'm proud. I'm a proud Minnesotan.
You mean the same in the south of Spain?
In the south of Spain? Yes. Right, because lots of times they cut off the S. And like, viva la flores. My teammate one year was from Jornadas, and Claudia was her name, and she spoke pretty well with me, but when she started talking on the phone to her parents, she completely changed. And then I went and visited her family, and I went, to her house, and I sat and had dinner with her parents and her sister, and yeah, it was very different, very different. And then, I mean, her uncles and her grandparents, don't even get me started. Like, that was, they're from the pueblo, they're from the town, and their Spanish was completely different. And then my teammate from Argentina, Gisela, her parents will talk to them on Skype. And so I see the picture of her dad and her mom, and they're speaking, and I'm completely lost. It's like you start feeling so good about yourself. It's like, oh, I understand Spanish, I can do this. And then you speak to somebody that you are not used to speaking to, and it's like, oh my gosh, what are they saying? I can't believe I don't understand. For example, 3 years ago, I went to the musical in Madrid, Los Miserables. Okay? Has anybody seen it? Nobody? Okay. Well, I went to the musical, and I was really excited because I love musicals, and I thought, oh, this is going to be great. I was bringing Juanma, it was like my gift to him. I was so excited. And the musical lasted for maybe 3-4 hours. I mean, it was a long musical, and I didn't understand squat. I mean, it was like so depressing because they were singing, and the songs, yeah, really pretty, but I couldn't understand anything they were saying. Maybe if we were sitting in the front row, then maybe I would have understood, but we were like up in the back. And, but once again, you gotta be positive, You gotta just take it with a grain of salt and continue day after day. But, yeah. Welcome. You did very well. Oh, good. It's almost 1 o'clock.
Okay, we're going to have a short break. So if you want, you can come outside and have coffee, and then we can continue.
Are you going to practice today? Or could you stay here while Alex is going? Because I know that you have got, yeah. Actually, I think we started. Alex, that would go over real smoothly. That's the thing, el escribí, estaba muy contento. Digo, me quedan 4 partidas. Sí. Hola. Bien, de nada.
Está muy brillante y muy simpática, ¿eh? Muy divertida.
Está muy bien.
Muy legal, muy bien.
Está muy bien.
Espontánea, además.
Audio no se oye, ¿verdad?
Aparte,
Viene muy bien ahora, o sea, que la participación.
No me pueden decir que no,
Sí, buenos días. Lo tienes delante. Y además eres grande y se te ve bien, o sea que no es... Está muy bien, la verdad. Enhorabuena. Juegas bien al baloncesto y hablas muy bien, o sea que tienes futuro cuando te retires a dar conferencias. Gracias otra vez, que yo creo que ya está.
Sí, director of basketball operations. So she organizes, summer camps and all of their travels, no food, buses, planes. She's not very hungry. Is she? That's good. She'll be 3 months. Okay, yeah. Wow, that's nice. I feel like, well, I don't really know this. Are they really close? Your sister and her? Yeah. They're really. Kristen? Well, from Minnesota.
No, pero la manera de ser, ella no hablaba tanto español, pero así era muy abierta. Desde el primer momento me costaba más porque no hablaba español, pero en la Cuba, en el colegio, pero de verdad, yo ahí estaba con ella y hablaba inglés. Las niñas hacían un grupo, decían que se adaptaba a todo y muy contentos disfraces, da pena, mejor, ¿sabes? No tener más tiempo para estar contigo. Sí, yo también es difícil, pero cuando se sentía, sí que yo tenía muchísimo